I thought I was giving my wife everything she ever wanted, until I discovered she was plotting to take it all from me. What started with a gut feeling turned into the darkest truth I've ever faced. My name's Jack, and for the past 8 years I've been married to a woman named Emily. We built a whole life together, 3 amazing kids, a beautiful house in a quiet, upscale neighborhood, and a lifestyle that I worked long and hard to provide. Emily hasn't had to work a day since we got married. Her days are filled with taking care of the home and raising our children, and honestly, she's had everything she could ask for. We even had a small team helping out around the house: cleaners, a gardener, a chef, just to make life smoother. All I ever asked of her was to make sure things stayed in order at home and to take good care of the kids. After our 3rd child was born a couple of years ago, I decided to hire a personal driver for her. I thought it would give her some freedom, to go shopping, visit friends, or take the kids around town without the hassle of driving herself. She was thrilled with the idea, and I didn't think twice about it. Everything seemed to be going well. From the outside we looked like the perfect family. But over time I started noticing little things that didn't sit right. Emily began acting different. She's always been independent and smart, but there was a subtle change in her behavior. She started becoming more reserved, more guarded. She began lying, small things at first, nothing you could point to and say, "This is it," but just enough to stir doubt in my mind. And she was clever about it, so much so that I started second-guessing my own instincts. Still, deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I just didn't have any proof. Then a couple of nights ago, something strange happened. It was close to 11 p.m. and I was still up, wrapping up some work in my study. Emily had already gone to bed. I heard a car engine outside, nothing too loud, just idling longer than usual. Normally I wouldn't have thought much of it. Our neighborhood's safe and sometimes people just park for a few minutes. But this felt off. I stepped outside to take a look, but by the time I did, the car had already left. Still, the feeling stuck with me. I didn't bring it up to Emily. I didn't want to worry her over what might have been nothing. But the next morning, while she was getting the kids ready for their activities, the unease still lingered. She was taking them to soccer and ballet lessons, and I had the house to myself for a few hours. That's when an idea popped into my head. What if we had security cameras installed? I told myself it was just for safety. With the size of our home and the kids always running around, it made sense to have extra eyes. I'm not someone who's usually suspicious, but with the way Emily had been acting lately, the mysterious phone calls she waved off, the emotional distance, it started to feel like the smart thing to do. So that day while she was out, I brought in a crew to install cameras. Nothing invasive, just a few around the front and back entrances, the driveway, and one in the living room where we spend a lot of time. I even had one positioned to cover the street view just in case. At first, it really was about security. But if I'm being honest, a part of me hoped they might capture something, anything, that could explain the shift I'd been feeling in Emily. I didn't want to believe she was hiding something from me. I was clinging to the hope that I was just overthinking everything. But I needed to know either way. I figured if I was wrong, then I'd feel better for checking. But if I was right, then I needed to see the truth for myself. A whole week went by and everything seemed completely normal. Maybe even too normal. Emily kept up with her routine, taking the kids to their lessons, meeting up with friends for brunch, going out with the driver for shopping runs. Nothing unusual popped up. No strange calls. No odd behavior. It almost had me convinced I'd overreacted. But that feeling from the other night still hadn't left me. I couldn't keep reviewing the footage myself. I was swamped with running my company, and honestly, I didn't want to get sucked into obsessing over every little thing. So I hired a security firm to help. Their job was to go through the footage, flag anything odd, and send it to me. If nothing came up, great. But if something did, at least I'd know. Another week passed and still things felt ordinary. I started to relax a bit, even questioned whether I'd let stress get the better of me. Then 2 days ago I got an email from the security team. The subject line read simply, "Footage found." Attached was a file. When I opened that email, my stomach sank. I hovered over the file for a moment, frozen, just staring at it. I didn't know what I was about to see, but some part of me, some gut instinct, told me that whatever was on that footage was going to change my life. I tried to calm myself down, thinking maybe it was just a clip of the mailman dropping off a package, or a neighbor walking their dog. But deep inside I knew better. I could feel it. Something was coming and it wasn't going to be good. I finally clicked play. As the footage began to roll, I leaned in, watching closely, hoping for nothing more than a false alarm. The video started off ordinary. There was Mark, our driver, pulling up in the driveway like he always did. He was polite, respectful, helping Emily bring in the shopping bags, picking up the kids from their clubs. Same routine, nothing unusual. Honestly, for a minute there, I felt a bit ridiculous for even installing those cameras. They walked into the house together, Mark carrying a few bags, Emily offering him a drink. They headed into the kitchen and sat down, chatting over tea. At first glance, it all seemed normal, friendly, casual. Too casual, maybe, but still within the bounds of what you'd expect from two people who spend time together often. I figured maybe the system had just flagged basic movement, and that's all it was. Still, something in my chest told me to keep watching. So I skipped ahead through the clips, expecting to find more of the same. Mark coming and going, Emily tidying up, the kids playing in the background. But then, it happened. As I fast-forwarded through another segment, a single frame caught my eye. Just for a split second, but long enough. I paused, heart racing. I rewound slowly this time, and what I saw next knocked the air out of my lungs. It was Emily, sitting on top of Mark. No clothes. His hands were all over her. They were in our living room. In our house. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I just stared, unable to look away. There was no mistaking it. This wasn't just a hug or some moment taken out of context. This was betrayal, raw and undeniable. My wife, the woman I built a life with, was cheating on me with our driver right under my roof. I kept watching, hoping that somehow I was wrong, that it would suddenly switch to something innocent. But it didn't. It only confirmed what I already feared. And the worst part? It didn't look like a one-time thing. The way they acted, the ease between them, it looked familiar. Like this had been going on for a while. I felt sick. My entire body went cold. Everything I thought I knew about Emily, about our marriage, about the life we created, it shattered in that moment. And I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. No, I was beyond angry. I was burning up inside. But I knew I couldn't let that anger get the best of me. Emily was clever. She always knew how to come out looking spotless, no matter what mess she left behind. If I was going to get through this without losing everything, I needed to play it smart. So I started planning. First, I backed up the footage in multiple places, cloud storage, flash drives, everything. I wasn't going to risk losing the one piece of proof I had. Then I made the toughest decision of all. I acted like I didn't know. I pretended everything was fine, even though every time I looked at her, that image of her with Mark burned in my mind. It was pure torture. But I had to stay calm. My next move was finding the right lawyer. Not just any attorney, I needed someone sharp, experienced. I booked a meeting and laid everything out, showing them the footage. They were stunned. And impressed. With that kind of evidence, we could build a strong case. But I also learned quickly how delicate the situation was. If I let emotions take the wheel, I could lose the kids, the house, everything. Emily had rights too, and if I wasn't careful, she could spin this around on me. But I was ready. This wasn't just about ending the marriage. I wanted to make sure she didn't walk away with half of what I spent years building. She betrayed me, humiliated me, and now she had to face the consequences. I was going to fight for custody, for the house, and for my dignity. And Mark? He wouldn't walk away untouched either. I had something planned for him, but first I needed to make sure Emily felt every bit of the pain she caused. In the days that followed, I started digging deeper, going through financial records, email exchanges, anything that might help me piece together the life Emily had been hiding from me. I needed to understand just how far this betrayal had gone, how long it had been happening, and whether there were other secrets I hadn't even considered. Every little detail became important. My lawyer told me to stay patient, to not tip my hand too early, and to keep everything looking normal on the surface. But deep down, I was already gearing up for a storm. Emily had no clue what was heading her way. The hardest part of this whole thing wasn't tracking down the evidence. It wasn't even sitting through the legal meetings or building a strategy. The real challenge? Keeping a straight face around Emily. Every morning, I had to eat breakfast with the same woman who'd betrayed me, smile for the kids, and pretend like I wasn't just waiting for the right moment to expose everything. But eventually, I couldn't sit on it any longer. I needed to make the first move. It was a Thursday morning. The kids were at school and Emily was in the kitchen, sipping her coffee and scrolling through her phone like it was any other day. She barely glanced up when I walked in and sat across from her. My heart was pounding, but I kept my tone steady. "Emily," I said, leaning back in my chair, "we need to talk. I'm filing for divorce." She looked up like she hadn't heard me right. For a second, she just stared, blinking like she was trying to process the words. Then she let out a laugh, short, sharp, totally dismissive. "Divorce? What are you even talking about, Jack? Are you serious right now?" I gave her a few seconds to let it sink in, watching her face twist from confusion to disbelief. And then came the panic. She wasn't used to not being in control, and it was starting to show. "I've made up my mind," I said calmly. "It's already in motion." That's when she snapped. She jumped up, slammed her phone on the counter and started pacing. Wait, no. You don't just wake up one day and drop this on me. Is this about someone else? Is that what this is? You're cheating, aren't you?" Her voice kept rising, and I could see the way her thoughts were spiraling, trying to land somewhere that made sense to her. She came around the kitchen island, eyes locked on me, like she was ready to launch a full attack. "You think you can replace me?" she hissed. "You think I'm just going to roll over and let you walk away? I'll take everything, Jack. The house, the cars, the kids. All of it. You don't get to be the victim here." The irony of her threats almost made me laugh. She was acting like I was the one with the secret. Like I was the one who destroyed our marriage. But I didn't let it show. I stayed planted in my chair, unmoved. "If you want a war," she said, her voice shaking now, "I'll give you one. You'll lose everything, Jack." But this time I stood up. I walked past her, slow and calm like I'd already won. "We'll see," I said as I reached the doorway. "You don't even know what I have. And you won't, until court." I didn't even have to look back to know she was stunned. For the first time, she wasn't the one pulling the strings. The trial came faster than I expected. I had worked day and night with my lawyer, making sure every detail was documented, every piece of evidence backed up and in place. This wasn't just about ending a marriage anymore. This was about protecting my kids, my home, and the life I had built from the ground up. Emily walked into the courtroom with her usual confidence, that smug smile she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. She had no idea what was waiting for her. We took our seats. The tension in that room was almost tangible. Across from me, Emily whispered something to her attorney and he nodded. She smirked, like this was just another performance and she was center stage. I clenched my fists under the table but kept my face neutral. This was it. My moment. The proceedings began. Her lawyer went first, painting a picture of Emily as the devoted mother and supportive wife who'd been abandoned emotionally. They called me distant, too focused on my business to notice her needs. It was a performance, honestly. A carefully rehearsed lie. I kept my head down and let them talk. I was just waiting for my turn. Then my attorney rose to speak. He laid out the entire narrative, point by point. The timeline, the patterns, the carefully assembled mountain of proof. And when he finally cued the video, I could feel the shift in the room. Emily's eyes were locked on me now, a flicker of confusion and unease beginning to cloud her expression. She had no clue what was coming. The screen at the front of the courtroom lit up. At first, it was harmless, just Emily and Mark unloading shopping bags chatting in the kitchen. She didn't even flinch at those scenes. If anything, she looked a little smug, probably thinking that was all we had. But then, it shifted. That frame. The one I'd found that night I couldn't sleep. It appeared on screen like a slap to the face. Emily. Completely exposed. Straddling Mark on the living room couch. It was unmistakable. Undeniable. The room went dead quiet. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. Emily froze. Her cheeks flushed deep red, her hands gripping the edge of the table in front of her. Her lawyer stood, objecting, too late. The damage had already been done. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to move. The footage said everything. I watched her unravel. Her chest was heaving, her eyes darting. She had spent years perfecting this flawless image. Model wife, devoted mom, always in control. And here she was, exposed, right in front of the judge, our attorneys, the court staff. I almost felt pity. Almost. Then she broke. "You monster!" she screamed, shooting up from her chair so fast it toppled backward. "How could you do this to me?" Her voice echoed through the courtroom as she rounded on me, face twisted with fury. "You set me up. This is illegal. I'll ruin you, Jack. Do you hear me? I'll take everything." She was nearly foaming at the mouth. Her hands clenched, voice trembling, completely unhinged. The guards had to intervene, pulling her back as she kicked and fought. It was like watching a curtain rip down the middle, revealing the version of her I'd always suspected existed. The real Emily, the one behind the performance. The judge banged the gavel, calling for order. But the mask was off. Emily had shown her true self to the entire courtroom. When the doors finally slammed behind her, silence settled again. And sitting there, in that echo of her chaos, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Relief. It was over. The truth was out. The grip she had on my life, on our home, our kids, on me, was broken. But the hardest part was still ahead. The custody battle. I had always been a present father. School pickups, parent-teacher nights, bedtime stories. My kids meant everything to me. But Emily wasn't going to let go of them without a fight. She wanted full custody. Claimed I was too busy with work, that I wasn't emotionally available, that she was the only consistent parent. But after what had just happened in court, I wasn't backing down. I had my lawyer dig deeper, into everything. And what we found made my blood run cold. It turned out Emily hadn't just been cheating. She'd been lying about the kids too, about doctor's visits, school issues, all of it. She told me she was on top of things, that everything was fine. But she hadn't been attending school meetings or taking them to medical appointments. Notes from teachers had gone unanswered. The nanny had covered for her, doing things Emily was supposed to handle as their mother. And then it got worse. Social media posts began to surface. Photos of her out at bars, drinking, posing with men I didn't recognize. Nights she told me she was home with the kids, she was actually out partying. There were time-stamped receipts from clubs, even posts from friends tagging her in places nowhere near home. All of this came out in court. The nanny gave a written statement, admitting she had been left alone with the kids countless times while Emily was unreachable. We had medical records showing multiple missed pediatric appointments. School reports Emily had signed but never shared with me. Everything lined up. Her absences weren't rare, they were routine. Emily tried to spin it. Claimed she was just overwhelmed, that she needed to blow off steam, that it wasn't what it looked like. But the evidence crushed her narrative. The judge wasn't moved. Not this time. This wasn't just a custody case anymore. It had become a reckoning. As more of the truth came to light, I could see Emily beginning to crack. With each new document, each contradiction exposed, her confidence wavered. She tried to hold her composure, but the pressure was too much. Tears started rolling down her cheeks as she pointed at me, blaming me for everything. Said I had made her feel isolated, that hiring too much help around the house made her feel unnecessary. But it was clear to everyone watching, this was desperation, not truth. Then came the moment that would define it all. The judge cleared her throat and looked across the courtroom. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, her voice calm but firm, "what we've seen here today presents serious doubts about your ability to provide consistent and responsible care for your children. Parenting isn't simply about being physically present. It's about showing up, following through, and putting their needs ahead of your own." I glanced at Emily. Her face dropped, all color draining away. She looked like a shadow of the person she once pretended to be. "Therefore," the judge continued, "primary custody will be granted to Mr. Thompson. In light of your repeated neglect and concerning behavior, Mrs. Thompson, your visitation with the children will be supervised, pending further evaluation." Emily lost it, again. Just like during the divorce proceedings. She jumped up, yelling that this was all a setup, that I had turned the system against her. But no one flinched. The courtroom had seen it all. Her words no longer held power. Security stepped in and like before she was let out, only this time she wasn't just losing face. She was losing her children. The room emptied slowly after that. I stayed seated, letting it all sink in. Relief washed over me, but not in the way I thought it might. It wasn't joy. It was quiet. The kind that comes when a storm finally ends. I had fought for this, not to win but to protect my kids, to rebuild something honest out of the rubble. The final day of court came like a closing chapter. This was where it would all be decided: custody, the house, everything Emily had once threatened to take from me. I had spent months preparing, enduring every accusation, every meltdown, but it was almost over. Emily sat across from me, a shell of her former self. Gone was the woman who once walked into courtrooms with confidence and charm. Now she looked tired, broken. But even then I could see the flicker of hope she was holding on to, that somehow she could still walk away with a piece of what she'd destroyed. Then the judge began to speak. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, we've come to the end of what has been a long and challenging process. It's evident this marriage cannot be mended. But above all, the well-being of the children has been and will remain our top priority." Emily shifted, her eyes darting nervously. She knew what was coming. After reviewing the full body of evidence, the judge continued, "The court awards full possession of the shared marital assets, including the home, vehicles, and financial holdings, to Mr. Thompson." I finally exhaled. The home I had built for my family, the place where I tucked my kids in at night, where I'd spent countless hours trying to keep things together, was mine. Emily just sat there stunned. "And furthermore," the judge added, "Mrs. Thompson, due to clear evidence of infidelity, unstable conduct, and neglect, you are hereby required to vacate the residence immediately. Temporary accommodations will be provided by the court, but you are no longer permitted to reside in the family home." Emily's mouth opened like she was about to object, but nothing came out. As for the children, the judge concluded, Full custody is awarded to Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson, you will retain supervised visitation rights until further review determines otherwise. The silence that followed felt like the world holding its breath. I had done everything I could to protect my family, and now, finally, it had paid off. Emily rose to her feet, trembling with rage. Her chair slammed back behind her. "This is a joke," she screamed. "You can't just take everything from me. That's my home, those are my kids." The judge called for order, but she didn't stop. She turned toward me, eyes blazing. "You think you've won, Jack? You think this is over? I'll find a way to ruin you for this. You're not done with me." But her words didn't land. The guards had already moved in, gently pulling her away. She fought them, screaming, accusing, but her voice faded as the courtroom doors closed behind her. That was it. It wasn't the victory I had imagined. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like freedom. A painful, necessary end to something I'd tried so hard to save. But now it was time to start over, with my kids, with honesty, and finally without lies weighing me down. As Emily was led out of the courtroom, her voice echoing faintly down the hallway, I stayed seated for a long moment. The weight of everything, her betrayal, the legal battles, the endless nights of doubt and pain, was finally lifting off my shoulders. She was gone. Out of my life, out of my house. For the first time in a long time, I was free. I didn't feel joy. This wasn't a moment of triumph. It was a quiet end. A necessary one. Walking out into the sunlight that afternoon, I knew things would never be the same. But I also knew this was the beginning of something better. Emily was out of the picture and I could finally focus on rebuilding, with my children, my home, and my peace of mind still intact. A month passed and things finally started to feel normal again. The kids and I found a rhythm, breakfast together, school runs, quiet evenings. Emily had tried to claw her way back into the narrative, threatening to fight the ruling, to reclaim what she believed she was owed. But she had nothing left to stand on. The court had spoken. I stayed grounded, followed every legal rule, and made sure my kids came first. As for Mark, the driver, he was gone the moment the trial ended. I told him I never wanted to see him again. He didn't argue. He just stood there, eyes on the ground, and gave me one last confession. "Jack, I need to tell you something," he mumbled. "Emily, she was planning to leave you anyway. This wasn't just a fling. She had this whole plan. She talked about divorcing you, taking everything. The house, the money, the kids, starting over with me. She thought it'd be easy." I didn't say anything. I just stared at him. "But," he added quickly, glancing up with the smallest trace of shame, "now that everything's fallen apart, I'm not staying with her. She's lost everything. I can't be tied to that. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know it'd end like this." I actually laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh, it was disbelief. The irony of it all. Emily's master plan had crashed and burned. She had gambled everything for this illusion of a better life with Mark, and now even he was bailing. She was left with nothing. Not the house, not the money, not even the man she risked it all for. I didn't punch him. Didn't even raise my voice. Mark wasn't worth it. But that didn't mean I let him walk away untouched. A few days later, I sat down and wrote him a reference letter, one that told the truth. I listed every detail, every boundary he crossed as my employee. I didn't use insults or dramatics, just facts. How he betrayed professional trust, got involved with his employer's wife, and violated every ethical line in the book. I didn't need to scream it, I just documented it. Calm, clear, and impossible to ignore. That letter, I knew, would haunt his future in any decent job. I didn't need fists to ruin him. The truth was enough. With that chapter closed, I felt something close to closure. Emily and Mark were gone. Their plan had failed. My home, my children, and my sanity were still standing. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm after that. The house felt quieter, simpler. The kids laughed more. I could finally breathe without the weight of suspicion and tension bearing down on me. No more lies. No more secrets. But just when I thought it was over, Emily came back. It was late one evening, a few weeks after the final custody ruling. I was putting the kids to bed when I heard a soft knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it and there she was. Emily. Barely recognizable. Her mascara was smudged, hair unkempt, face streaked with tears. She looked exhausted, defeated. "Jack, please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I made a mistake. I need you. I'm sorry." She stepped forward and collapsed to her knees. Right there on the porch. "I'll do anything," she cried, hands gripping the doorframe. "I was stupid. I was selfish. I didn't know what I was doing. Please, let me fix this." I didn't say a word. I just stared at her. This was the same woman who told me she'd take everything. The same woman who lied to my face, tore our family apart, and tried to turn the system against me. And now here she was, broken, desperate, pleading for mercy. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't vengeful. I was done. Because the real punishment? It wasn't mine to give. It was hers to live. Please, Jack, she sobbed, her voice barely audible. I can't live like this anymore. I've lost everything. I have nothing left. Just give me another chance. For the kids. There was a time when those words might have broken me. When seeing Emily like that, on her knees, face streaked with tears, would have shattered whatever walls I had built. But that time had passed. She hadn't just betrayed me. She betrayed our children. She broke the very foundation of the family I worked so hard to build. I'm sorry, Emily, I said quietly. But it's too late. She looked up at me with hollow, pleading eyes, the remnants of desperation clinging to her expression. She was reaching for something that no longer existed. You made your decisions, I added, stepping back into the doorway. And now you have to live with them. But before I shut the door, something stopped me. One last question. One last piece of the puzzle. Wait, I said, my voice steady. Before you go, I need to know something. Emily blinked, wiping at her face. Anything, she whispered. Just ask. How exactly did you plan to take everything? I asked, my voice calm, the kind of calm that comes from knowing you already have the upper hand. Mark told me about the plan. What was it? She hesitated, caught off guard. Her lip trembled. For a second I thought she might lie again, but then she sighed. Her whole posture collapsed like a balloon losing air. It was stupid, she muttered. I thought, if I could make you look like the absent husband, the one who was too busy with work to care, I could get full custody. And with that, the house, the money, everything else would follow. I felt the truth settle in my chest like a final stone placed on a grave. She had been setting me up. For months. While I worked long hours to provide, she was spinning lies, twisting narratives. Pretending to be the picture-perfect mother while sneaking around with the one man I trusted enough to drive my family around. And the affair? I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it from her lips. Did you think I'd never find out? She gave a bitter laugh, more out of self-loathing than humor. I thought I had it under control. I thought Mark would stay quiet. I believed if we got everything we wanted, we could just start over. I thought what you didn't know couldn't hurt you. But it all fell apart, I said flatly. She nodded slowly. And now I've got nothing. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't even feel angry. Just numb. The kind of numb that comes after too much hurt. So it was about the money. The house. You were willing to rip this family apart. For that. She tried to respond, but I'd heard enough. Thanks for being honest, I said quietly. But it doesn't change a thing. And with that I closed the door. I stood there for a moment in silence, listening as her footsteps echoed down the driveway, away from the home she would never enter again. And then I turned and walked back toward the kids' bedrooms, where their soft breathing filled the halls with peace I hadn't felt in years. That night something clicked inside me. I was done mourning the past. Done clinging to the version of Emily I thought I knew. The truth was out. The lies were behind me. And with them so was she. In the months that followed, life found its rhythm again. A quieter one, yes, but steady. Honest. The kids began to smile more. Sleep better. Laugh like kids are supposed to. We built new routines. Movie nights, weekend hikes, pancakes on Sundays. It was just us now, and that was more than enough. Emily tried to call once or twice. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. As for my work, it thrived. Without the weight of a crumbling marriage dragging me down, I was able to focus again. Clients noticed. So did my staff. I found joy in what I did again, not just pressure. Things started to click. And in the end, I realized something important. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to punish her beyond what she'd already done to herself. I had the only things that mattered: my kids, my home, my integrity. I had peace. A new beginning. That was enough.